Hi everybody, welcome to the What Makes You Tick podcast. My name is Stephen Bradshaw and this is episode 5. Hi everybody, it's great to be back with a new episode, and this week I'm sharing with you a fantastic discussion I had with professional rugby player Robin Copeland. However, before I get started, would you believe that this episode is brought to you by one of Ireland's and Dublin's best pubs, the Merry Cobbler in Irishtown. I know. I'm thrilled to have their support, and I've spent a lot of time over the last few years enjoying their good food, quality drinks, and really incredible atmosphere that Jim and his son Will have created. It's only a stone's throw from the Aviva Stadium, and it's where Robin and I got a chance to sit down and record our conversation, and maybe if you listen closely you might hear some background chats that went down behind the scenes. I'm hugely thankful to the whole crew, and I wholeheartedly recommend you pop down to the guys at the Merry Cobbler. If you need some info, just go to their Facebook or Instagram pages. So, Copey, as he's known to many, has played literally at all levels possible in his journey to become an Irish international. He talks to me about his journey, his battles with injury, the psychological effect, and how he learned to develop his skill set as a player when he was off the pitch. We talked about so much more as well, including his time in Munster and his final conversation with the late, inspirational Anthony Axel Foley, and what he learned from him. It was an excellent chance for us to catch up, and it was great to see a good friend, and I'm delighted to be in a position to share with you our chat. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What Makes You Tick, and my next guest on our season is a good friend. We happened to live together when he was starting out in rugby. It is none other than Robin Copeland. Robin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Yeah, it has been a while. Yeah, we won't talk about the last time we saw each other as we danced our way through Galway.
Yeah, no, good times.
Yeah, less said about that, the better.
Yeah.
So listen. You mentioned to me that there earlier that you've heard a couple of the podcasts now at the moment, and the kind of the premise of what we're trying to achieve here, and the reason obviously I wanted you on this season is, yes, you're a friend, but your journey as a professional rugby player is quite interesting in that you didn't go the route that's been created now by the IRFU, where you go through school, into the academy, and then into one of the provinces. Yours was a bit longer, and I suppose I just wanted to kind of get your take on all that, what it's been like, and if there's any kind of learnings that we can take from it, because obviously the whole point of our chat is to create nuggets of information potentially for others who are kind of following a similar path or who are finding certain things quite challenging, whether it's in sport or business and life and stuff, but then to maybe take learnings from those who've gone before and see what they can use to apply to their life. So I suppose let's look at it for anybody who doesn't know Robin Copeland. Let's give a kind of a bit of a background to what your story is and how you've gotten to the position now where you're playing rugby for Connacht.
Yeah, I suppose my story is definitely not the textbook rugby story. I didn't go to one of the big rugby schools in Dublin or anything. I'm I'm from Wexford. Went to school in Kilkenny. Played rugby in school and played to a decent level there, I guess, but rugby was never something that I saw as a career path when I was in school. It was something that I did with my mates, had a bit of crack with, blah blah. Made Leinster schools, didn't make Irish 20s, Irish schools, any of that stuff. So it was kind of like separate from that world. I felt like I was good at it. Got to a certain level, it was fine. Went to college. Before I went to college, I was at some trials. There were some trials for this Leinster sub academy. I had no idea what that meant. They were just like, yeah, just turn up on this day and see what you can do. Yeah, play rugby. And I was like, all right, yeah, grand. Turned up, played really well that day. Thought I stood out a bit, but still had no idea what it was for. Then I got this letter saying, oh, look, yeah, turn up at this date. You're selected for this sub-academy. And I was like, all right, grand, look, it's another trial or, whatever it is. Turned up like 7 o'clock in the morning, did weights, did a training session. I was like, all right, lads, back to Wexford, whatever. And they're like, oh, man, you're in tomorrow again. I was like, what? And they're like, yeah. this is a year-long thing. And I was like, oh, holy shit, what? I was like, I literally had no idea what I was involved with, like the level it was at, nothing.
Some say ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, like literally walked in and there was these guys, who like were so driven and passionate and knew the path that they wanted to get to, and like you say, want to be a professional rugby player, this is where I need to be, blah blah. And I was like, what's this for? Like just so oblivious to anything. It was never explained to me because I was so distant from it. And then I found myself in this situation where I was, do you want to be a professional rugby player? And I was in college at the time as well, and I had, 13, 14 training sessions a week, and then a game at the weekend with St. Mary's, as well as my 30 whatever hours of college. And I was missing so much college. And if I was in college, I was so tired that I wasn't listening. I was drawing a picture, or I was chatting to someone beside me. I wasn't switched on. And it kind of came to a turning point, and they were like, at Leinster, they're like, yeah, look, we're going to offer you the same again. And I was like, look, lads, like the pathway for me here is so far at the minute. Like I was looking at, the people who were starting in my position. I was playing second row at the time, playing for Leinster and stuff. And I was like, I'm about like 12 people down the list here. I have no guarantee, I'm going to fail college if I keep doing this. So I said, look, I'm going to leave the rugby for a while. I need to focus on my college because I'm not extremely studious. I wasn't, really good at that stuff. Yeah. If it was distraction, I'd focus on the distraction and not the thing in front of me. I was just that kind of guy, and rugby was that distraction at the time. So I said, I'll park it. Still played rugby for Mary's, but I parted ways with Leinster at that stage. And I always, the habits and stuff that I learned, and the conditioning stuff, the weight stuff that I learned that year in Leinster stuck with me. I really, when I was in there, I worked hard, and I did create good habits with my nutrition. I learned that when I was in the gym that I pushed it. I still wasn't that keen on going to the gym a whole lot.
You're a genetic freak, though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
You're getting away with it.
Yeah, genetically, I was blessed. And 90% of my career was genetically blessed. Like, I can say that I know that physically I just had something else and other people didn't.
Yeah.
And yes, I worked hard and I created good habits, and I was with my nutrition and with drinking, and
you were able to balance it, I suppose, as well.
I always did. Yeah, I went out in the piss, but I drank water at the end of the night, and made sure I was okay, and I had food going to bed, and made sure I got up and ate properly the next day. And
you had
in that sense, I was smart around it, even if I was going out on the lash.
Yeah, because I
was creating good habits in the same time.
We lived with each other for a couple of years, and I
learned a lot.
Yeah. But so we lived with each other for a couple of years, and it was great because you were coming up out of Wexford and Kilkenny College and stuff, and you were kind of first time away from home. You were living with us, but then you started playing, and kind of while you were going through that sub academy experience with Leinster, you were then also getting the club aspect of it as well, which was great because there's a big difference now with kids that are coming through is that they don't necessarily go through the club remit and kind of experience what clubs have to offer from a community aspect as opposed to professional, right? So tell us about just a bit of that experience as well.
Like, because when I went into Mary's, like the first thing that I felt there was that these guys are all best mates. These guys I went into the under-20s team there, and they were all in school together. They all knew each other like unbelievably well. And even to this day, they're a real tight bunch. And that sense of a club, like a proper club, that these guys are a part of something, that was there for my entire 4 years at the club. I really felt that I was part of it, and that, guys were relying on me and I was relying on those guys, and they always look out for each other. And, that was so important to me at that time that, I felt that I wasn't just working and doing it for me, that, I was part of that, and I was working for those guys as well. And that was huge.
Yeah. Like, we got some amazing times, like I think as well, like not only what we did on the pitch as a group, we kind of evolved together as well, because you came into a really good time when there was a lot of guys who were bought into, okay, we're here, we're going to go through the process, and this is a long-term play. But then off the pitch as well, we traveled together, we went on trips away together, we had such great fun, and I think there's such importance to do that aspect as well as obviously working hard and
that's like Smithy at the time and Hugh Hogan, like those guys were hugely influential towards me at that time. And you know, looking back, I know I can see now how much influence they had on me, and you know, I'm forever grateful for that. Like I remember like Peter Smith came to me at the start of the season and he said, look, we've lost a few guys in the second round. And he's like, there's nobody else. Like you're a guy to go to now. Like you're going to have to step up. And, you know, that was the year, that was my first proper year at senior. You know, young guy, skinny little second row. But I said, right, that's when I restarted to look at myself and analyse and look at my strengths. Look at my weaknesses. What am I good at? Where can I most, you know, apply myself? And that's when I really started to excel. Like I think I was top try scorer in the league, in the league that year.
Like as second row.
So like
you were running rings around wingers.
But like that was me finally being like, I have something special here. How can I use them as much as possible on the pitch? Get as much big moments in a game as I can, and that kind of has led me to this point in the sense that before a game and training sessions, like, okay, what am I really good at? How can I use those as many times as possible? So the team can benefit. What are my weaknesses? How can I work on those so that, you know, they're not as weak as they were last week? Or and that's like with rugby, it's such a great game that you'll never have a perfect game. And when you make a mistake, you'll always have next week to make amends. And work on stuff. And I think that's like it's always been the driver of me playing is, what was I bad at last week? How can I make that better?
That's great, because having that as a kind of, you're never resting on your laurels then, you know, you're always trying to improve. And it's like, if you're always trying to improve and you're trying to, then you're doing not only benefiting you, but you're benefiting the team, right? So when you were playing with Mary's, so like we had some amazing games, and we were quite successful over that period of time, winning different cups and all that stuff. But when did the opportunity then come to you then to go, right, I'm now, I suppose I'm realizing my potential here. I can showcase my skill set. I'm excelling in different areas with on the pitch. I want more, or I need to. I think I can make a career out of this.
Again, like when I left school, it wasn't even my decision in a way. Like I didn't go looking for it.
Okay.
So when I said that I had that real good year at senior, like that top try scorer year, I was my last year in college, so I was just coming to the end of my studies, and an agent came to me and said, here, look, have you ever thought about playing professional? Because there's a lot of opportunities overseas. And I was just finished college. I was like, right, I can go into irishjobs.ie and try and find something sitting at desk, or I can go over and give it a crack for a few years. Doesn't work, I'll be exactly where I am now. I've 40 something years to work. It's fine. And that was my attitude. Been like, go over, give it a crack. If it doesn't work, then so be it. Excuse me. And I went over to the UK. I went to Plymouth Albion first. I did a year there. What was that like? Was okay. It was fine. It was loose. You know, it was a real student town. The guys were just mad for sauce and birds and everything else. And it was just like, rugby was grand, but not a great team, and
not the professional environment you were thinking of.
And I didn't really take it that seriously either. But then I had a coach came to me from Rotherham, and he said, "Do you want to play for Ireland?" And I laughed at him. I was like, "Yeah, like that'd be great." And he's like, "No, like, is that what you want? Like, is that a goal?" And I was like, "I haven't really thought about it," and I hadn't. I literally never thought a professional rugby getting me to that point. I was like, oh, it's a career. I could do it for a few years and, enjoy myself and make a bit of money, blah, blah. And when he said that, it kind of was like, Jesus, like, okay, how would I make that happen? And he said, come here. I'll get the best out of you. I'll give you an opportunity to get to the next level. You'll excel there. You'll go to the next level. You'll excel there. You'll go to the next level. And I'd never thought about it as a process like that. And from that day onwards, and this is where having a mentor or a coach or somebody who's driving you and asking you the right questions, not telling you to do something, but asking you the right questions, can make such an impact on you and make you ask questions that you'd never thought about. Even though it sounds ridiculous to say to a rugby player that you've never thought about playing for Ireland, I hadn't at that point. It was never something that I thought was achievable. And I went to Rotherham and I really knuckled down. I applied myself. I pushed myself so hard. And every single game I went out, my thought process was, this is a stepping stone to the next level. This is a stepping stone. You have to be the best person on the pitch every time you go out there. And it wasn't putting loads of pressure on myself, but it was one game at a time. It wasn't like, I need to get to here, and if I don't, I'm a failure. It's this game, next game. Every game is a stepping stone. And I got player of the championship that year. Played unbelievable, and that was my first year. I moved to back row as well. I played 6 that year, and that was a big stepping stone as well, that I felt that position was much more suitable to my game. And I was able to apply the best things about my game a lot easier than I was at second row.
Yeah. Gave you a bit more freedom then as well.
Yeah, gave me a bit more freedom.
Yeah.
And, I really knuckled down on my nutrition and my weights. I put on, 3 or 4 kilos, and that made a big difference. And my speed improved. But the coach, he really just gave me that self-belief. And
who was the coach?
Andre Bester. And a lot of people hated him. A lot of people really didn't like him at the club because if you're in his good books, he was the best of you. But if you're in his bad books, I remember him shouting to people, "You are fucking shit. You'll never play for me again. You're a fucking disgrace." While they're on the pitch, get the 10 minutes into a game, get off. You're shit. And that can shatter a guy.
Extremes,
extremes. And he was real love hate kind of thing. But he said to me, if you play well, we'll win. That's the power you have. If you play well, we're going to win.
And did you find that as pressure, or did you find that as going unbelievable? They need me, so let's go.
Yeah, I found it encouraging because I had belief in my own ability as well.
Yeah.
But that was the thing at that stage. There was, even if I got, or if I had a really good game, I was always like, I'm not where I want to be yet. That was good, but you haven't proved anything. Yeah. You're doing it against the level below. Yeah. This is the championship. This is not top level. You're not playing against international guys. You're not playing. It was always like.
So the competitor in you was coming out massively. Then, right.
And that was the thing.
Yeah,
I was competitive to a point, before, but I never was really that competitive with myself. You know, and that was just driving me on. And I think the big thing for me was just setting little goals, having a target in the distance, but it was those little goals every week, just bang, 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 bang. And I was blessed with injuries as well. Until I was probably 4.5 years into my professional rugby career, I'd never had an injury. Never missed a week. You got
huge opportunity then to express yourself over a prolonged period of time
and improve every week.
Yeah.
And that was huge.
Yeah.
Until I was 25, I'd never missed 2 weeks in a row.
Amazing.
In my whole career.
Yeah.
And I know guys in academies now who've had 6 operations by the time they're 20 and 21. It's just I was so blessed.
Yeah. So then from Rotherham, then you you put yourself into the shop window then, right?
Yeah.
And from Rotherham, then you moved on to
I went to Cardiff.
Cardiff. Yeah. So you were with the Blues.
That year,
yeah. That was a
Rotherham,
huge year for you as well. Yeah.
So that year at Rotherham, I was Championship Player of the Year. And that opened a lot of doors with 5 or 6 Premiership clubs had offered me contracts. And
go on, can you tell us who?
Yeah, it's long time
ago. Here, anybody listening?
But yeah, like Leicester, Bath, Exeter. I had Leicester at the time. I went up and met what's his name? The ex-Leicester coach. He's at Edinburgh now.
Dean
Cockers. Cockrell.
Cockrell, yeah.
And he was like, look, really like what you're about, you know. He's like, what weight do you now? I was like, about 112, 113. He's like, yeah, we'll put 5 or 6 kilos on you. And I was like, what? Why? Like, but that was just the way they played back then. It was
their
like,
pack was enormous.
And I was like, I'm a pretty big guy for background, 112, 113. And he's like, we'll put 5 or 6 kilos. I was like,
I won't be able to run.
I was like, I won't be able to move. Like, but anyway, so this is that thing about the pathway of playing for Ireland and stuff and trying to get to that level is I had Premiership clubs and I had Cardiff who played in the Pro 14, and I was like, if I want to be seen back home, I need to play against the Irish provinces.
Yeah. So
I chose to go to Cardiff for that reason, you know. So I signed a 2-year deal with Cardiff and I had 2 absolutely brilliant years there. Like that, never injured. I played 54 competitive games in 2 years.
Wow.
Which is, in professional
insane
setup is quite a lot.
And you were building up, I suppose, the fact that you were becoming durable and resilient as well in terms of your physicality and being able to repeat it over and over again.
Exactly, yeah. And I was building a reputation for myself, but I always felt like I was faking it or like I didn't deserve it.
Really?
To a point. I think every professional rugby player at some point feels like, I'm going to get figured out one of these days, but I need to keep pushing. I need to keep
Where do you think that comes from?
I think everybody have insecurities of some kind.
Yeah.
You're like, I've been lucky, but I'm going to get found out soon. I'm going to get found out. One of these days I'm going to get found out. So I was like, just keep pushing, get to the next point before you get found out. It's terrifying to think back and like ask that of yourself. But that was generally my thought process sometimes was.
Do you think that's a good thing? Because like there's kids coming up who probably and people who are trying to make it and probably having similar chats with themselves.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good? Because did that help drive you?
Yeah, I think it did. But it was also that humility to be like, you're not as good as you think you are. You need to keep working. And that was like, that was huge for me to be not arrogant about it and not feel like you've made it, because I hadn't made anything. Like, I signed to Cardiff from the Championship for feck all. Like, beans.
Fitness, yeah.
There was guys who were on 4 or 5 times that I was on who weren't getting picked ahead of me, And I was like, I've earned nothing. If I had to finish now, I'd have earned nothing and I've done nothing. So I still had so much to prove.
Yeah.
And so much to achieve. I'd achieved on the pitch, but like as a career, as a businessman, and that's what sport is.
Yeah,
is a business. And
I've seen you talk a little bit about that recently, especially in your recent transfer and stuff. Is like, listen, yes, it's great to play rugby, and the passion and the jersey is kind of gone when not gone, but that it takes a second position when it becomes your job and your career and your livelihood and your income.
And when I was in Leinster Academy, I was told that. I had a meeting with the coaches and they said to me, "Why are you here? Why do you think you're here?" And I said, naively shaking, maybe make me a better rugby player and blah, blah. And they said, "No, you're here to make us money. If you can't do that, we don't fucking want you." And I was 18, and I was like, Jesus Christ.
That's a lot to take in.
That's a lot to take in when you're so far down the ladder.
Yeah.
That can be quite demotivating.
Yeah.
But it was a big wake up call to
the professional industry.
Professional
and all
industry
that,
of it's not about the crack. It's not about, being flamboyant and having crack. This is business, and you have to perform. And you are your own, you're your own product, your own business,
promoter and everything. Yeah.
So if you don't try and push to the next level and excel and fight for the better contracts and do what's best for your career, they're going to be at loss, because loyalty only goes one way. Like, clubs aren't loyal to you if you're not performing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no you're still one of the lads. No, it's you're a business, and if you're not making the money, if you're not making a team, if you're not improving, you're gone. And it's ruthless in that sense. So I was always very aware of that because of what was said to me at that age. So I kept pushing.
Yeah.
So when I was at Cardiff, I had 2 great years. Was called up to, Ireland's Six Nations squad, preliminary Ireland Six Nations squad. Didn't make the Six Nations squad because I was technically still in a foreign player. So that summer I went on an Emerging Ireland tour. I'd signed back with Munster. I was really excited about that, going back. Went to, where was it? Georgia? No, Romania we went to on a tour. Got player of the tournament there. I thought, oh, Jesus, sky's the limit. I'm doing well. A lot of guys who are on that tour are playing international rugby now and stuff. Came home, was playing for Munster, was playing quite well. Starting Champions Cup. Was performing well, and then I dislocated my shoulder just at Christmas and was out for the rest of the season, and that was my first long-term injury, and that was a real test to think. Because of that, I'm finally found out. I'm finally going to get found out.
Wow.
Because how am I going to recover from this? I can't. I've relied on being able to play every week. I've been relied on having that durability. How am I going to recover from this?
What age were you?
25,
okay.
26.
So the first major injury.
Yeah.
Because I was saying to you earlier on, I was at that game. I was against Leinster. And I remember watching you make a hit and then get up. It took you a while to get up, but then you got up and you were holding your shoulder, and I was going, Jesus, he's in trouble there. And that was the kind of the change in terms of you had been on such a high trajectory and a steep trajectory for so long.
Invincible.
Some might say.
Invincible.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Mentally, you probably gotten to a point where it's like, I can do pretty much what I need to do, what I want out there, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So then you get the hit in terms of the injury, all right? And now you're facing a whole new challenge. So talk to us about that then, because that mental challenge, having been injured a million times myself in playing rugby and going for my 13th general anaesthetic or something next month, like this, it's a serious mental battle to come back and to be back, to try get back to that level again,
and you always have the doubt that you won't.
And this time, had you played for Ireland?
I played for Ireland.
You'd gotten your first cap.
Yeah, I got
Ireland,
my first
full cap.
Against Georgian Honour Internationals.
Yeah.
So that was a huge point for me, and
like going back to that meeting or that conversation you had with the Rotherham coach.
Yeah.
Do you want to play for Ireland?
Yeah.
And this is it, and you achieved that.
To get there and to look back at the path
what was that
that
experience
I went.
like?
It was daunting at the time. It was a little bit overwhelming in many respects because of how Joe is. He's a very detailed orientated guy. It's all about everyone knowing their role, and that wasn't my strongest point. I was very much play what's in front of me, look for an opportunity, use my skill to beat a defender. And he wasn't in that kind of sense. That's, the same as Zeeves. That's why he wasn't really in Joe's good books a lot of the time, because he went off script a little bit too much or whatever, and probably wasn't as good as learning the detail or whatever it is. So that was kind of daunting, and it was so much pressure to learn everything in such a short period of time. But, you know, it was absolutely incredible to get my first cap and play in the National Stadium in front of a sold out crowd and family and friends there. And, you know, that'll never be taken away from me. Whatever happens, I'll have it forever. And you know, do I wish I got a few more? Absolutely. But you can't help the way things go. And, you know, the competition that's there at that level means that it's not easy, and you have to be at the top of your game for a long time to earn that. So sadly, that injury was probably a big factor at the time for me not getting a few more. It came probably right at the wrong time, just after my first cap, and you know, missed the rest of the year, so I was unavailable for a Six Nations call up. But you know, I did use that time to develop other areas of my game. I definitely became more studious of the technical part of the game in a lot of time. And during that rehab cycle, I used it as an opportunity to get better in other areas and to really focus on my explosiveness, to gain a lot more core strength and things like that. Things that I thought were a weakness before, to really work on those. And that's how you get through it, is setting yourself little goals again, you know?
Yeah.
Little goals, tick them off, work hard at them.
That's it.
Work towards the end goal is getting back on the pitch.
Yeah.
But it's all those little things to get there. How am I going to get there? You know,
it's kind of like what
shoulder stability.
What Ruds was saying before in one of the previous episodes is like, focus on the process, not the outcome.
Yeah.
The outcome will take care of itself if you put the process in place to get there. You know, and then you focus on all the different tools and the detail that you need to kind of learn or practice over a period of time. So the injury came at the wrong time. Obviously, trajectory then kind of slowed down, but you used it as an opportunity to learn other things, which is brilliant, right? So I think for anybody who does suffer from injuries or happens to find themselves in that position, I suppose the learning really is that, yes, okay, it's shit that it's happened and that you got the injury, but now it's given you an opportunity to focus on areas that maybe you mightn't have normally focused on. As you said, you studied the detail a little bit more. You know, you focused on explosivity, you focused on a load of other things. What would you say to somebody who maybe they're going through an injury at the moment, or maybe they're blessed enough to not have any injuries, but I don't think any player can go through a career without some type of injury.
I think the mental aspect of it is massive.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that I kind of thought a lot about at that time of the injury as well, was the psychology of it. And you know, when I was younger, I had like pretty bad ADHD, and that's why I found studying quite hard. You know, I'd lose focus quite quickly, but as well, what it did was allowed me to self-analyze and self-reflect quite a lot, because I'm like, why aren't I doing this? Why am I not doing this properly? Or what is wrong with me? Or why am I distracted here? And shit, I'm distracting that person over there. What did I do to distract that person? And, you know, I found myself looking back at my own behavior quite a lot, even in my teenage years. And I found that helped me a lot when I had the injury. It's been like, okay, what were you doing that pushed you the last time? What were you doing? What were you really thinking about that made you really push yourself? What were your goals? Why were you doing it in that way? What was your weaknesses? How were you reacting to those bad things that happened? And not allowing myself to feel anything was a disaster. Anything could be fixed. Anything, you know, if I made a mistake on the pitch, it was always next job. Make sure your next job is a better one. Same with the injuries. Like, okay, you're going to come back stronger. You're going to come back this, and you're make yourself a plan. What are you going to work at? And that was the mental aspect of it, is something that I've really enjoyed thinking about and going through and getting help on. I've been to sports psychologists. I've been to meditation sessions. I've been to hypnotherapy sessions. I've done things like that a lot of people wouldn't really think about when they look at me, or if they know me, they're like, "Jeez, what? He did hypnotherapy? Like, that's not something." But I found it fantastic, and even like this morning, I listened to a hypnotherapy session.
Brilliant.
Just
See, this
lying in bed, and it I find it really, really helpful.
Brilliant. And that's the thing, is like, what's right for you might be right for somebody else.
Yeah.
But you found the tools that help you be the best kind of version of yourself, right?
Which I'm not yet.
Yeah, but you're still learning, right? You're still
learning,
practicing,
and
you're evolving.
Yeah, and now that I'm 32, and the end of my career is probably not that far away, I'm looking at the rest of my life and stuff, and I'm thinking, Jesus, like, what am I going to do? Like, what can I be? And I'm like, what are you good at? Like, and it doesn't matter what it is. I know my strengths. I know what I'm able to do. I know that I'm able to add. I know that if there's a short-term goal, I'm really, really focused on it. Yeah. Some of the really long-term goals, I'm very, very bad at focusing towards. So I know now to set myself small goals, because if I have a big, long goal, I'm going to lose interest by the time I get to it. So I have to just keep setting small goals, 2-3 days at a time.
And that's the big thing. Like, so as you say, you're coming to the kind of the twilight of your career, right? But the transition from professional rugby player to whatever's next, have you thought about it? Or are you, as you say, are you at a point where, listen, I just got to focus on my job now, which is play rugby?
I suppose I have been like the latter there. Like, I'm just focused on rugby, because like when I was first left school, I found it very hard to multitask a full-time professional thing and my studies. So I kind of felt like that was hard to do. Now I think I'm definitely more, okay, I need to prepare, I need to do things, I need to think about it. And I'm more focused on my off-pitch stuff. Yeah,
because does the club now that, so you've transitioned now from Munster and you're playing now with Connacht, right?
Yeah.
And you've been with them, what, 2 seasons now? Is it? This is your second season? So big change from the Munster side of things through now to Connacht, but still equally tasking. You're just after finishing the European kind of campaign as well. Body is probably sore after that. And now you're in the kind of, as you say, you're at a point where you're kind of considering other options now outside of rugby. Like, you did a bit of an internship with Shadowman Sports with JP and the guys there, right? And that was must have been a decent learning curve. But are the club, or is the professional setup, the RFU or Connacht, whatever, do they have the tools and the process in place to help players transition?
Yeah, and like, we've got a lady up in Connacht, Deirdre Lyons, and she's fantastic. Like, she always encourages guys, go in and see her, ask her, what can I be doing? Is there something more I can do? And the thing about professional rugby is so many people want to be involved, like, with the organisation, all the sponsors, everything. There's so many people who are dying to help you, but you have to be willing to put the work in, and you have to be willing to, have no anonymity, just go and do things. Don't be told to do everything.
Yeah.
Like, no one's going to hand you a job.
Yeah.
No one's going to hand you a task and be like, do this, and when come back to me and say, no, you have to go out and do it yourself. You have to be proactive about it. And that's the thing that I learned in the last probably year or two, is just what it takes to be successful off the pitch. Like you said, I did a bit of an internship with a company in Limerick, Shadowman Sports, and I went in there, and I think my sole purpose when I was in there is see if you can add something.
Add value, like.
Yeah, just figure out are you able to do anything outside of rugby? And I went in there, and some days I was leaving work and I was absolutely buzzing, just like, oh, today was such a good day. I we came up with good ideas, you know, we came up with a good plan, we did that, we achieved these goals, we made those sales, whatever it is, and you're like, I was driving home and like, fucking hell, like, it's so rare from rugby that you're driving home from a day of work with that kind of feeling of achievement.
Yeah.
Because rugby is massive goals. So like big games, taking them off the list. If you win, it's brilliant. It's the best thing. It's the best feeling ever. But it's so short-lived because come Monday, you're like, oh, what did I do wrong? Oh, that was a mistake, blah, blah. And you're analysing. And then it's the next week, oh, shit, the next team's coming. And those big wins are so few and far between that it can be a really stressful environment. You're worrying about selection. You're worrying about your body, like pushing yourself in training, you know, all those things that are so stressful that when you go into a business side, setting those small goals and having those little wins all the time is so satisfying and so rewarding that I was just like, oh my God.
Excited you then?
Yeah, and you're like, you can actually add things and you have so much value, and the things you've learned from rugby with your resilience, your problem solving, your people skills,
teamwork,
you know, those things that actually are applicable and you can, you know, do. Yes, you have to have the skill set, you have to have the knowledge of your industry, you know, have the work ethic, all those things. Yes, you have to have those, but you know, doors will open if you're willing to put the work in.
I found that within my job. So having the knowledge of rugby and working in a team and knowing that not everybody can be a place kicker, not everybody can throw the ball and not everybody can run sub 10, you know, in 100 meters sub 10, whatever. But knowing that where their value is within the team is so important on the business side of things, because surround yourself with people, especially if you're a leader and you've got a team of people, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, who have more knowledge in a certain specific area than you. They might necessarily be able to lead, but they definitely can bring in value and strategic insight and all this kind of industry experience and expertise, because then for you, then that'll give you the best kind of platform to either learn yourself or to grow and push your business or your group to the next level. So that's class.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, okay? So, over the years now, your career has spanned what?
10. It's my 10th season.
10 years, okay? So, and but if you look at it, right, no doubt there's been amazing highs and pretty tricky lows as well. Can you just kind of nearly touch on some of those stories? Because we maybe have touched on a couple of them as through injuries and stuff like that. But can you just kind of bring a couple of examples of your highs and lows throughout
there's a long list of both. Yeah. You know, like I suppose there's been loads of big moments throughout my career. Like when I was at Rotherham, you know, I remember there was one game where it was the game before, or just before the time when my coach said, if you play well, we'll win. I remember him saying that to me, and that game went out and I just played unbelievably well. My parents were there at that game, and you know, I got a write up in the paper next day, 10 out of 10, which was like unheard of in the rugby paper, and it was just like, this guy's next level, and I was just gave me so much belief, and that was like a real high point. Then getting, you know, player of the championship, you know, getting recognised by your peers and the coaches from other clubs and stuff, that was huge. To be like, you know, you've earned it. It's, you know, you are good enough. And yeah, just that, you know, that was that's unbelievable for my confidence. Well, yeah. And then I suppose a big one was my man in the match against Toulon. When I was at Cardiff, you know, they were the double European champions, best team in Europe. We were massive underdogs. I know they came to Cardiff Arms Park, and you know, we just played unbelievable that day, and I just found myself going to the next level, and that really shone a lot of lights on me at the time and opened a lot of doors, and that was huge. Everyone was talking about it. You know, people still talk about it, you know, those days. And then obviously signing for Munster, and my brother, who's a big Leinster fan, I remember him putting up a Facebook status at the time, being like, by now I'm sure some of you have heard the bad news. I just hope that, our family can stick together through this terrible time. And then everyone's like reading, like, oh my God, what the hell happened? It's like, I just hope Robin's decision to sign for Munster doesn't rip this family apart and stuff. It's like, oh, I think it was like reposted by the Leinster fans, like website or something. It was awful.
Talk about bringing it back to reality.
Yeah. So yeah, look, there's loads of high points, and low points are, I suppose, the big ones for your confidence is just not getting picked.
Okay.
Like when the coach is like, yeah, you're just not good enough this week or something, you're like, fuck.
But that's hard to take, right?
Yeah,
where's the construction then? How do I improve?
Yeah, like, I can't improve. I can't work on this week. And the guy who's ahead of me is getting that chance to show what he can do. I know what I can do. I'm just not getting that chance to show it. And that's really hard. I suppose I hadn't had many of those days until I came to Munster after my surgery and stuff. That was the first time I wasn't really picked.
Yeah.
I was literally picked my whole career before that. So that was tough. And I think I've had a few days now in the last probably 2 years where it's been really, like, there's been 1 or 2 days where it's just been like, fuck, I'm just gonna knock it on the head, and literally those thoughts go through your head, be like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then then you go out next week and you're like, I'm fresh. I didn't have a game this weekend, and I can push myself in training. I know I'm training really well, and I'm that guy who was ahead of me last week. I'm ahead of him now, and you re-motivate yourself and you work on things, and you realize that, look, it's not personal.
Yeah, it's business.
It's business.
Mm-hmm.
No one dislikes you. No one thinks you're shit.
Yeah.
No one, blah, blah. It's just business, and you didn't do your job last week. You need to do it now, and that can be tough to process at the time. But that's where that humility comes in, being like, I'm not perfect.
Yeah,
I still have things to work on.
Yeah,
like you, and they want to see other guys have opportunities, young guys, and
that's fair enough.
You know your worth.
You were that young guy one day at one time. Yeah. So and you're
begging for his chance.
Yeah, and now the thing is, they're probably learning lots from you now as well, and you're kind of passing on the torch a little bit, or passing the mantelpiece a little bit. But
and that's something I enjoy doing as well, is encouraging young guys.
Great, yeah,
and being like, man, you're class. Like, just keep doing that and work on that. And I don't see it as competition. Like, I'm very much we're a team. I really want the team to do well. How
can you benefit for the team? Yeah. In terms of mental health, what's the kind of experience you have at the moment?
Yeah, as I said before, I've always been very self-reflective.
Yeah.
And I've had people close to me who've had depression and have been, in the depths of it, and it really makes you emphasize your own mental health and think about it and prioritize good habits. And for me, the big one that I always turn to is, don't compare yourself to anyone else. If somebody else has more of something, or is better at something, or their life seems better and they've been lucky, and how come they've got all these class things and they've got a way better car, or more money, or more successful, or whatever it is.
The perception of it, yeah.
It doesn't matter. That's why one thing I hate about Instagram is I see people comparing themselves to all these other people, and I'm just like, so what? Like, you're on your own path. Set your own goals. Worry about yourself. Don't think that you need to have anything. You don't need anything. It's all superficial shit. You don't like. The other thing is, for me, is nothing is a disaster. Nothing happens that's so bad that you need to feel really shit about yourself. If I was told that I don't have a job next week, I'll deal with it. Whatever it is, it's fine. If I lose my house, do you know what? It's fine. I'll deal with it. It's not going to be the end of the world. Nothing. I don't catastrophize anything. And that's a big thing for me is whatever hurdle I come to, whatever bad thing happens, I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll feel shit about it for a day, but then it's done.
And I suppose what you're talking about there as well is a lot of materialistic stuff as well, right? So all those things can be replaced. And I think, people put too much value on the material and rather than actually focusing on the experiences with others, with people that you love, with those 100%. Who are important to you.
And that's where I hold my value now is, my family. I've 8 nieces and nephews who I adore, like absolutely love going home to see them. All my family are fantastic. And I hold such weight in that. It costs nothing. It don't need anyone else, don't need anything. Just if I have that, my girlfriend, she's brilliant. Just like the best times where I'm happiest is literally just sitting at home, chilling with her, watching a movie. That's like, I don't need anything else. Simple stuff. Yeah. That like, you can be in a real nice house. It doesn't matter. You can be in a real nice hotel.
Yeah.
If she's sitting there with me, that's like, that's all I'll need.
Yeah.
I've been so blessed.
Yeah.
I've been so lucky. I've had to work hard to get here. You've proved yourself over and over again. I played with some fantastic teams, some unbelievable players, some of the best players in the world. And if it does end tomorrow, I've been blessed and I'm so happy, and I don't look back and I don't regret any of it. I don't think I've missed out on anything. And that's one thing that I feel some people, when they get really down and like even my girlfriend, sometimes she'll fucking hate me saying this now, but she does compare herself to other people sometimes, and it bothers her, and she's like, I really want a house, I really want to buy a house, and I'm like, why? You don't need a house. Like, she's like, I'm butting this age. It doesn't matter. You don't need a house right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that is going to make any difference to your happiness whatsoever.
It's the pressure of society, though. That's the problem.
It's society pressure.
You hit a certain age, you should be a certain place. You hit a certain age, you should have X amount in your bank account. You should have a certain pension. You should have a certain size house. Married. You should have kids. You should be married.
It doesn't matter.
This is the thing, is that people live up or try to live up to an expectation of society instead of actually living up to their own expectation of happiness or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And really stepping back and going, hold on a second, lads. Just because you see me in a certain light doesn't necessarily mean that's right, and that's, people see, I've said it a number of times, people see the headline. They don't necessarily see the actual content and the depth underneath what's happening to somebody behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And if you can look in the mirror and be proud of what you're doing and actually really, really be able to say to yourself, I'm giving it my best shot and my intent is right, then the rest of the stuff falls into place.
100%.
We go back to just on the rugby front again, right? So throughout your career, you would have played with so many different characters now, because there's characters obviously on the pitch, but there's some unbelievable characters no doubt behind the scenes, all right? Who have been the kind of those characters or those most influential people as in terms of teammates or coaches, as you that kind of spring to mind?
I suppose like Hugh Hogan and Smithy back in the day, at Mary's, hugely influential to my attitude towards rugby, setting good habits, having responsibility on my shoulders in a team environment, and give me that confidence that they're like, you're good enough. You're good enough to do whatever you want to do. I suppose Axel at Munster in so many different ways. I'd never really had a coach like he was. Like, he would be like, you're fucking shit, that's fucking shit, you need to be fucking better. But like, it was in such a constructive, like, I want you to be better, I believe you can be kind of way.
Saw the possibilities. He saw the potential in you.
Like I remember, the last like meeting I had with him before he died. I was in his office, and he didn't pick me for a Leicester game. I was just coming back from an injury. I think we had a few weeks off after, it was coming into European weeks, and he didn't pick me. He actually had me down to play at the start of the week, and then changed his mind. He's like, "Oh, look, I don't know if your fitness is there." And I went into him and I was like, "You fucking prick!" I was like, "You're taking away this opportunity for me." It's like, "Do you think I'm going to play? If I don't play this week, that I'm going to be picked for the European games the following weeks?" I was like, "No, absolutely not. Like, you're taking away the next 3 weeks. Opportunity. I feel like I'm ready, and you're taking it away from me." And I was like, "You're a fucking asshole." And he's like, "I'll fucking put you through that wall, you prick." He was like, swear. And the two of us squaring up in the office. And I was like, square. And the two of us got fired up. And I was like, I was like, all right, I need to calm down here. And I'd never really been like that before, like roaring at coach. I'm always like, I see your point. You know, I need to work harder. I need to do that. I didn't play well enough last week, blah, blah. But that week I wasn't. I was just like, "You're taking something away from me that I don't deserve." And I fucking gave it to him, and he threatened to put me through a wall. But then he took a step back and he was like, "What's going on? Like, with you? You know, what's really going on?" And we sat there for half an hour having a really deep chat. And I'm not gonna lie, I was in tears in his office because I had so much other shit going on that he was more than willing to talk about. And the two of us left, and he said, and Jerry Flannery told me as well, he went into the coaches meeting the next day. He's like, "Kobe has to start." He's like, "He has to start this week, end of." And I was like, you know, that's the kind of coach he is. And it says a lot about the man. And, you know, he was such a big person down there. And yeah, he didn't get everything right, and there was a lot of things wrong. But fucking hell, he knew players, and he knew the game better than anyone, you know. So he was so influential in opening my eyes to a lot of shit and seeing a different side to a lot of things, you know.
Wow,
that's
incredible. Yeah,
that was huge.
And like you don't,
literally the next week he was gone.
Amazing,
crazy.
Like, that's so crazy. Yeah. Wow, that's. You know what? We don't get to hear those stories. You know, we don't get to hear what's going on, because at the end of the day, you guys are in the public profile, and they see when you guys tag out, nobody takes into account any things going on behind the scenes. Nobody takes into account any injuries.
That's business, baby.
That's business. Yeah, exactly. You see, and this is the thing: when you're out there, you're deemed to be 100%, whereas you're not necessarily are. And fair play for sharing that with us. If you were to gift something to somebody, all right, so whether it was a piece of advice or a book that you've read or anything that you've learned over the last while on the psychological side of things, what would that gift or what would that piece of advice be?
I guess know your strengths and work as hard as you can trying to implement them as often as you can. Know your weaknesses and work hard at them, because improving your weaknesses is where you will improve the most. And it also creates that humility to be like, I'm actually shit at that. You know, I need to work on that. How am I going to work on that? And it's a real driving force. You know, it can really motivate you, and it takes the fear out of it as well. It's not like, "Oh, I'm shit at that, I need to stay away from it." You know, it's like, okay, I'm shit at that, I need to tackle that head on. How can I better that? How can I get better at doing that? And then the other thing is just set yourself little goals. Don't overcomplicate yourself. Don't think it's something is unattainable. It's not. Just set yourself little goals and tick them off. Tick them off slowly, no matter how small it is. And that'll give you that sense of achievement and give you that confidence that you need.
So, like, what's next for Cope? And what's coming up?
I don't know. I'm don't know if I'm going to get another contract. So it's very much looking at the next step, trying to maybe do a bit of study in a certain area, try and narrow the focus on what kind of industry I might want to go into. So it's a lot of stuff up in the air at the minute. I don't really know. I haven't experienced a whole lot. I love the idea of startups, but I need to get a lot of experience. So I think if I did retire in the summer, that the next 2 years would be learning and getting experience, whether that's with studies and some sort of work in maybe startups or something like that.
Any type of industry that kind of appeals to you?
I like sales. I like
people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know yet. I'll see what doors might open for me in the next few months. But I'm very open, very willing to try lots of different things, and I try to do that a little bit. When in the off season in summer, I went into 3 different companies, just shadowed them for 3 or 4 days, try and see what kind of industries I might like to do.
Cool.
One's recruitment, one's tech, startup, loads of different things. So I'm just going to learn and try and see where I might want to dabble into in the next few years. But I'm not ruling out being a stay-at-home dog dad. That could. I joke about that with the missus, be like, you go look after all that, sweetie. I'll make the dinners and look after the dog.
And set up a dog creche.
Yeah.
Walking the dogs with 10 dogs coming out.
Yeah. I absolutely love that.
Delighted.
So look, I'm exploring a few different things.
Good. So listen, if people wanted to find you and contact you or get in touch, where would they find you? What's the best place?
Twitter, Instagram, at RobOCopey or RobOCopey. So yeah,
I'll stick all the info in the show notes. And if you do think of anything to give to people or want to send anything to me, I'll add that to the show notes as well.
Yeah, no worries at all.
Listen, thanks a million, pal. Really, really appreciate you taking the time. Means a lot to me, and hopefully everybody's enjoyed this.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, how about that? What a story. Robin, fair play to you for sharing your learnings and passing on your bits of advice, your nuggets of inspiration to me and to so many others. I hope, for those of you who are listening, I hope you're really able to take learnings from this chat and apply it to your lives, and I look forward to hearing how you do so. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and feel free to leave a comment, or if you'd like to get in touch with me, visit whatmakesyoutick.net or follow the podcast on Instagram at whatmakesyoutickpod. If you are on Twitter, you can find me at StevieBrads. Until next time, everybody, take care and look after yourselves.